Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy, the Mad Kaigan, up here today with a game review. I'm going to be reviewing Ghost of Tsushima. I always call it Ghosts of Tsushima, but it's not, it's Ghost of Tsushima. So, I've got to say that, first of all, this game is on PlayStation Plus. This is how I'm playing it. And the version I'm reviewing is the Director's Cut version. So I thought I'd just give you a bit of a brief rundown of what the difference between the normal version and the Director's Cut version is. So the Director's Cut version, which is kind of weird when you think about it, Director's Cut, it's a game. The last game that I knew had Director's Cut in the title was the old Resident Evil game. So essentially this version is on PlayStation now, and it is the PS5, it's basically the PS5 version of the game, but you also get the PS4 version. And essentially, it's kind of like your Game of the Year edition, which is very common in today with gaming. Any game that's very popular will get like a revised version, maybe 6-7 months down the line, or a year down the line, you know. Whether they call it many different things. So essentially, in this version of the game, obviously, you get your updated gameplay graphics and stuff like that for the PS5. But obviously, for the PS4 version of the game, obviously you get a few extra like cosmetics. I think you get a special horse, some armor, weapon colors, those sort of things. So usual little extras. I believe the game also has like a bit of an extended campaign. I think there's a few extra cutscenes or missions that were cut from the main game as well. And this is the version I'm playing, so I won't know the difference anyway. And then obviously you also get the Iki Island DLC, which is actually only available through the Director's Cut. I don't know if they've released it since, but as I know, this was only available through the Game of the Year edition, Director's Cut edition, whatever, which obviously gives you a fourth island. And from what I've heard, it's not big enough to be a standalone DLC like, say, Miles Morales was, but it's big enough for it to be like a decent size, basically. I think you get an entirely new island to explore with all of the extra stuff in there, a couple of new activities, new enemy types, upgrades, unlockables. And the good news is you can actually access it. If you're playing this version of the game, you can access it at any time after chapter 2, basically. I think if you go into chapter 3, you actually can't go back to it until you've beaten the game. I think that's where I've heard chapter 3 is where the final chapter or whatever is where you can't go back to any previous stuff. You have to basically play through the rest of the game until you can go back. But that's cool though, because, you know, if you wanted to play through it during chapter 2 and just get that extra bit of time, and from what I've heard, it's about an extra 10 hours long gameplay, basically. I think the main story is about 5 to 6 hours, but there's a bunch of extras and unlockables and, you know, things like that, which I'll go into when I talk about the gameplay soon. But yeah, that's really cool that you get all of that extra stuff, and I think that's amazing. You know, it's like The Witcher in a sense, you know, where the DLC is big enough to be its own game, if you, in a way, kind of. There's also Legends mode as well, which was released, I think, about a year after the game came out, which is a co-op game, and you have 4 different classes. I believe it's got its own little story. You've got survival mode. It changes the gameplay up a little bit because you have classes and stuff. I haven't tried it out. I've heard you can play it solo, but it's best experienced with other people. I have invited my friend to maybe check it out at some point. So when I do play that, I'll probably tell you about it. But into the main game. So first of all, the story. So essentially the story is about, you know, Jin, who, you know, you're playing as Jin Sakai. He's basically a fallen samurai who's basically, you know, it's set during like the Mongol invasion of Japan, and it's set on this island of Tsushima. I don't know if this is based on facts or if this is fiction or what. I know there was a Mongol invasion. I don't know if Tsushima was a real island or not. It probably is. And essentially you're basically, it's the usual sort of thing, you know, you get thrown out of it and everyone thinks you're dead, and you're basically coming back and trying to rebuild the samurai. But it's also sort of a story about how the samurai sort of fell, because as we know, the samurai were very set in their ways, you know, the old ways of, you know, doing things a certain way with honor, you know, facing your opponent head on. And in this game, you're sort of experiencing, you know, maybe that's not going to win us this war. Maybe we're going to have to sort of change our tactics and stuff. And obviously it's a constant battle of trying to be true to your heritage as a samurai, but also, you know, knowing that this isn't how we're going to win the war, you know. And it's very historical in some senses, because that actually happened. But I'll be honest with you, I'm only halfway through the story and I don't want to give a lot away. But from what I've played so far, it's really good. The story is amazing, you know. It does take, I've heard that after chapter 2, that's when the story gets really good. So I have noticed it's getting a little bit better. But there's a ton of, like, in a way, it's like The Witcher, in the sense that each side quest is almost like its own story. And I really like that. I love when games, side quests aren't just sort of thrown in for the sake of it, you know. They actually feel like you're doing something useful, and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed the story. Before I get into the graphics and sound department, so before you start the game, there's a ton of accessibility options. So you can actually play the game in your usual, you know, colors and stuff like that, but you can also play the game in called oh my god, I forgot the name now. Kira. Wait, one sec. But at the start of the game, you can actually choose to play in Kurosawa mode, where the game goes into like a black and white vintage style, much like a Kurosawa film. Which obviously, if you know who Kurosawa is, you know, Seven Samurai, those sort of films. I think it's a really cool option. Plus you get there's plenty of language options as well. I started playing the game in Japanese with English subs, but after a while I started to realise, you know, it's actually starting to confuse me a little bit, because I'm trying to look at what they're saying, but at the same time I'm trying to focus on what they're doing as well. I normally like watch anime and foreign films in the actual language, but when I'm playing a game it can sort of throw me off a little bit. So I switched back to English language and it's fine, you know, it really is fine. So I like that there's plenty of options. But the graphics, wow, this game is absolutely beautiful. And I'm playing it on the PS4, so the PS5 version would probably be even better. You're set in this huge, you know, island of Tsushima, and it's so beautiful. You know, you're exploring this island, you know, you've got all these different areas you can go to. You've got these old ruins with flowers and moss and mountainous areas. You've got swamps, you've got snowy mountains, I've heard. You know, these fields of just huge fields of colourful flowers, pink and cherry blossom and white flowers. The graphics are beautiful. This game has really pulled me in to just how gorgeous this game looks, you know. And in a way, it's kind of like you know, it's kind of true to what this game's trying to say, you know. Even during the time of chaos and uncertainty, you know, the world still can be beautiful, which I think a lot of people can relate to in this day and age as well. You know, it's not the world that's changing, it's the people that are changing, you know. And I think that's what the moral of this game is, in the way that you're looking at it. It's a gorgeous game, some great attention to detail, you know, the way your clothes move with the wind and the weather effect change the you know, the ground and stuff. If you're walking on mud, it appears on your legs. If you roll in mud, your whole character will get muddy. Reminds me of Red Dead Redemption 2 and that attention to detail. Not as in-depth as Red Dead Redemption 2, but very good in how it looks, you know. The characters look really good. I'll be honest though, a lot of the characters, NPCs, kind of look the same. And I'm not trying to sound racist or nothing, you know, because they're Asian, they look the same. No, that is not the case. The main characters all kind of look different and stuff like that, but I've found that a lot of the side characters, the NPCs and the peasants, kind of look the same, just with some different clothes and things. So, But that isn't uncommon with video games, unfortunately. Not every character can be completely detailed to be different. You've got to make some compromises here and there. Again, the sound is great, whether you're playing in English or whatever language you want to. I think the voice acting's really good. You know, everything sounds great. The explosion, the people dying, the screams, you know, it's really good. And obviously the effects, obviously, of walking and the animals, you know, you're going through, and there's so much attention to detail. You're going through swamps and you'll see like frogs jumping out of the water, and you go on the beaches, you see crabs coming out, and you see like birds. And the way that I really, the game is beautiful. It really pulled me in. Moving on to gameplay. So this game sort of is split into two different parts of gameplay that I like to say. First of all, you have your combat gameplay and then your exploration, much like any open world game. I'll start off with the combat. So the combat is actually really cool. So when you're in combat, obviously, mostly it's going to be, you know, it's basically like a 3-button combat, much like, say, Batman or Assassin's Creed. You have your quick attacks, your heavy attacks, and then your dodge. Of course, as you play through the game, you unlock new abilities and stuff. But what's really cool about this game is the stance mechanism. I know it's not the first game to use this, but this is the first time I've played a game that uses stance mechanisms that don't feel overly complicated. Say if you're playing, when you play games like For Honor, for example, that game had the stance mechanism. But when I played it, I was having a bit of a hard time figuring out what stance is for which kind of enemy. Whereas in this game, you know exactly what stance. So you have 4 different stances, and each stance is basically more powerful and useful against a certain type of enemy. So your stone stance, for example, is good against like swordmen, and you have your you know, you have your for example, you've got your that one, and you've got your wind one, which is good for against enemies like spears, and you've got another one which is good against shields, and then you've got one that's good against brutes. Of course, in combat, you can obviously switch up and use like quick abilities where you can like throw kunai stars and smoke bombs and sticky bombs to give you that bit of edge in combat. You've got your long range combat, you know, like your bows and your bombs and stuff like that. And then you've got your stealth mechanisms, of course. The stealth is actually, it's pretty decent. It's not to the extent of, say, Assassin's Creed, unfortunately. But it's decent enough, you know, it's your usual thing. You know, you can go behind an enemy and kill them with your little tanto blade, or, you know, using your bow, you can take them out from range. And obviously, but the thing is with this game, and this is where it links into that thing that I was saying about how the game sort of tries to make you feel like a samurai but sort of punishes you for not. Even though the game has a lot of moments where you have to do stealth, you sort of get moaned at by your character, like one of the characters in the game, saying, oh, you're doing this the wrong way, you know, you're meant to face your enemies head on. Again, and I like how it links into this sort of thing, but at the same time you have to sort of, you know, take note, you know, that facing your enemies head on all the time isn't the right way of doing things. But, you know, it's decent. You know, the combat is fluent. I'll be honest, there are a couple of times, now again, maybe this might change in the harder difficulties. I've heard if you play it on the harder difficulties, that's where it really gets sort of you know, really involved. But, you know, you obviously have your blocks and your parries and stuff like that. But I like that you can switch your abilities and your fighting styles on the go. You know, and it doesn't, you never feel like you're getting overwhelmed by enemies. Even if there's, like, say, 5 or 6 enemies around you, you never feel overwhelmed. You can always, there's always a way to sort of give yourself the advantage. You know, it's never unfair. There are a couple of times where an enemy might keep constantly attacking you, and you feel like they're constantly blocking your attacks. But there's 9 times out of 10, if you're failing in combat, you're the one making the mistake, not the game. And I like that. I think the combat is excellent. It's nothing amazingly new, but it's decent enough and fresh enough to make you feel like you're playing something special. And then we get on to the exploration side of things. And this is where the game really shines for me. Normally when I play these open world games, you know, I like to sort of take my time with it, and I have. just trying to find every nook and cranny. Of course, you've got your main missions, your side missions, your side tales, and obviously you unlock stuff and you can unlock new abilities and you know, finding things. But I love exploring things, you know, finding the fox dens, and you follow the fox to a shrine and you see the cute little fox, you know, which is really cool. Another point of the exploration is how the waypoint works. I think it's amazing how this waypoint works. So basically you'll push up on the touchpad, and then the wind will guide you. You know, there's no actual arrow or something like that telling you where to go. The wind will guide you, and I think it's great. You know, I think it's a really unique way of telling you where to go, and plus it makes the game look and feel gorgeous, falling into that sort of, like I said, with the graphic department and how the environment reacts to the weather. You know, I love exploring this game, finding all these areas, you know, going through all these different places like the forest and all these old burning buildings and finding these ruins, and you're just having a great time. This game has actually pulled me in so much for the exploration that I don't care, you know, if it takes me another 3-4 weeks to beat it. You know, I'm really enjoying finding all of the stuff. You know, I know a lot of people are like, well, you know, you can go back and get all that after you've beaten the game, which obviously you can do. Maybe there is some more post-game content after you've beaten the game. I don't know yet, but I can imagine there is. And I'm really pulled this in. This game has really pulled me into how you know, how realistic the world is and how beautiful it is. You know, I'm really enjoying it. You know, trying to find all of the challenges and stuff like that. And like I said, in the Iki Island DLC, I've heard they expanded on that even more. Now, issues. There's nothing majorly wrong with this game. I have come across a few little glitches here and there. One glitch was happening was the touchpad. Now, it could have been my controller, but when I reset the game, it worked fine. So at some point, the touchpad wasn't recognizing at some point. Again, it could be the controller, but I noticed that. Another glitch I found is when you go into like crawling and you have to crawl under things, and it goes into like this first person view, much like Metal Gear Solid or something. Sometimes when you go to the end where you're meant to come out, it don't let you come out, and you can wiggle the camera around as much and it still don't work. The only fix I've found is resetting the game. I've heard that there is another way of doing it. You have to put the camera in a certain way. It's not all the time, but it happens, you know, a few times for it to be kind of frustrating, especially in parts when you have to go through that if you're going for like shrines and things like that. So that's something I experienced. There are a few NPC glitches. Sometimes you can see NPCs sort of walking back and forth or going in circles, not really knowing what they're doing. I've come across that a few times. There can be a couple of glitches when you're jumping. If you make a jump over a certain like rock, your character will sort of just float there until they either fall down or go over it. A few glitches with like clothing, like in cutscenes, like your clothing will start to glitch out like that. And I've also noticed with like some trees as well in the game, especially like the thin bamboo trees, you can just go straight through them. There's no collision detection on them. Just small things like that. I've not come across anything unbreakable. Nothing makes the game unplayable. Just a few little glitches here and there. But with these open world games, unfortunately, you will have these glitches because the game's so big and there's so much. It's kind of hard to really figure out exactly where the problems lie. But again, like I said, you know, that to me is great, you know, that there's nothing too big. So I'm just going to rank everything up. So the features of the game, like I said, with the director's cut, I think that's definitely a 4 out of 5. I think there's enough in the game, updated version, to warrant you upgrading this game if you've got the normal version of the game, or if you've never played the game, this is the version you want. The story, again, for me, is getting a 4. I haven't beaten the game yet, but as it stands, I think it stands at a 4 out of 5. I think it's still a great story. I'm enjoying it. I'm intrigued by it. I want to know more. Graphics and sound get a 5 out of 10 for me. Yes, there are a couple of little things here and there, but I think the environment and the beautiful graphics, it's definitely one of the best looking games, especially on PS4, I've played in a long time. Gameplay and combat, again, I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. It's not 5 out of 10, sorry, a 5 out of 5 stars, because I think the gameplay is just great. Yes, it may not have something amazingly new conceptually, but I'm really enjoying it. I've never come across something that I've not liked so far. Overall, this game, for me, if I was to give it out of 10, for example, I'd give this game a 9.5 out of 10. Just those small little problems don't make it a 10, but a 9.5 out of 10. This game is absolutely beautiful. I'm really enjoying it. I think it's probably one of the best games that I've played in quite some time. And I'm enjoying every single moment of it. Oh, one thing I also should have mentioned, one of the issues, is the platforming mechanisms can be a little bit iffy at times, especially when you're trying to jump onto rocks and things. It's not like Assassin's Creed where you hold the button and it will automatically climb whatever direction you're pointing. You can only go up in certain ways and you have to point the analog stick to go up. But I've had a few issues where you're doing the little grappling hook and you swing and you're trying to reach out, but your character don't actually reach out unless you land directly on it. It's not always going to register it. That's just a small little issue I've had as well. 9.5 out of 10. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. Amazing game. If you've never played it, highly recommend it. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed today's video, feel free to leave a like and, of course, comment below. Let me know if you played Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut. What is your favourite moment? Do you play Legend mode? Do you want to check it out sometime? I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with a pickups video. I'm going to see what the weather's like tomorrow, because it's not meant to be as hot as it has been. Definitely not going away on the weekend, this weekend, not going anywhere. But so yeah, I'm trying to sort a few things out as well at the moment. So but I hopefully should be back tomorrow with a pickup. Kind of pissed though, because tomorrow Prime Day finishes today. Maybe they'll extend it, because I had a look on Amazon Prime and there's a ton of box sets and Blu-rays and 4Ks that are really cheap that I want to get, and I'm like, I don't know, man. But yeah, so you know, hopefully I'll get a few pickups tomorrow. And I will be doing, like I said, I'm going to wait on a book pickup. I'm going to get a random selection of books, hopefully, as well. So that should hopefully turn up by the weekend, so we can do that. Anyway, guys, of course, subscribe if you haven't already and join the family. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The Mad Kygo. And as always, have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye.